And I've been chillin', watching the ocean with you. Baby up with a slow motion crew. And we up in our growlings when people change, but not us. And we just chillin', kicking it, kissed by the sun. Could be soaked to the skin in the mall soon. I know she got the good vibes when seasons change, but we're the same. Even if I lost all my money, the zero runs deep, honey. And I don't need to speak a single word, 'cause you got me holding, holding. I'm Jimmy at Woodstock. Drum me around and go right for it. Shivers down my spinal cord. Oh, 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 oh. 'Cause you got me holding, holding. Even if I lost all my money, the zero runs deep, honey. And I don't need to speak a single word, 'cause you got me holding, holding. Even if my jokes sound funny, my tongue tied up on it.
Somehow, my video did end up getting 100 likes on the Blunderbuss Rapier build, so here's the full build rundown. I'll be going over the attributes, abilities, as well as the gear, things you could change up for your own kind of playstyle. So starting with the armor, it's the typical resilient elemental version. I have 5 pieces of each, resilient and elemental version, and for the other last 5 perks, it is claw shot, leeching shrapnel, and exhaustive net. On the pants, I have shirking energy because I think it's super necessary in a light build, and on the boots, I just took an extra flame conditioning just to be a little bit tankier since I'm playing on such low con. I just use Champion's Amulet. I do really like shirking and power, but there's an argument to play more survivability that you can play thrust protection instead. So if you play thrust protection, you'd have a total of 30% thrust in this build. Now for the ring, we have Invig, Fire, and Hardy. This ring is absolutely essential to the build. Since we're not playing Dex and you only have 2 rolls, Hardy is super valuable, but at the same time, Invig and Fire damage is so much damage. If you can't get your hands on this ring because it's super pricey, you can always just use either Champion's Amulet or a 2 perk with Invig plus Hardy. Personally, since I don't have this ring, I just play Invig plus Fire damage without Hardy, and it does feel pretty bad, but I would say for the general population that Hardy is absolutely essential on any build that's not Dex and light. Refreshing Toast, Nimble, and Healthy Toast. The mana pot healing is super nice, nimble with the regeneration for stamina, super important in the light build, and Refreshing Toast is just the best for overall push and cooldowns. Jewelry setup, I have full ignited on the rune glass, along with, the gems here, for a total of 20% thrust, 7% physical, and 10% fire. Now the other fire is backed up by 5% potion, so if you ever feel like there's a lot of mage pressure, you can always have these on your bar and you're taking 15% less damage. On the rapier, we just have vicious, keenly jagged, sundering riposte. Now the way I play this build is I am not using Rapier for DPS ever, almost. Like, unless it really calls for a situation, I am never using Rapier for DPS. So, the other two perks are not essential at all. You just want Sudden Riposte. The Rapier is mainly used for its movement, as you can see in the clips, and I only use Rapier offensively or aggressively when I need to riposte somebody and then get the max burst off with the Blunderbuss combo. For the Blunderbuss here, you have Flame Attunement, Healing Powered, and Enchanted. I highly recommend Prowling Enchanted and Healing Powered, and then if you can get a third perk for Flame Attunement, that is fine. I like to play Stone Form for survivability since I'm super squishy, but again, this one is up to you and it's really flexible. Moving down to the skill tree, here's the Blunderbuss skill tree. Some things I want to talk about first is how to use Unload. So, usually when I come up behind somebody as an assassin in stealth and they don't notice me, I always open with shooting the claw shot at the ground. And the reason for that is I'm getting 2 extra pellets on my next light attack, and since I can guarantee the light attack shrapnel since usually they're distracted, that's where the most value comes from and the biggest DPS. Another reason why it's claw shot that I choose to shoot at the ground is because when you use claw shot, you're actually gaining 8 stamina per second. This perk is super undervalued, and I think it's single-handedly carries the claw shot kit, and as to why it's so powerful in this build. Restoring 8 stamina per second feels absolutely insane, especially with Nimble and Stalwart stacked all on top of it. So when you follow up with a Unload into a Exhaust Shrapnel and your claw shot is on cooldown, it actually regains extra cooldown from landing each pellet. If I land one auto attack with Unload, I am gaining 16% cooldown reduction on this ability already, so it'll be charging back up again really quick. The final perk is kind of like a finisher in a sense for when enemies get really far ahead and you use claw shot to get close, but you have to reload, but it gives you an extra pellet, so this is really useful and I find myself securing a lot of kills with this perk here. As for the other perks like net shot, and I think run and gun is super high value, same thing with deep load. With the Unload perk, Future Endeavors is very high value because I'm also gaining 8 stamina per pellet hit. So if you think about it, when I have claw shot activated and then I land a light attack with Unload or without Unload, I'm gaining about 16 to 14 stamina. The other perks on this tree are just all super essential and I don't really have to go over them too much. You can just understand why I take them. As for the Rapier, since it's full defensive, it doesn't really matter too much as long as you have Evade, Flesh, and Riposte. These abilities are the best for movement and mobility, as well as defensives such as Evade being a invulnerability and Riposte also being invulnerability. Now moving up to the stats, this one is kind of interesting for the attributes. Stats really depend on your playstyle. So personally, I like to play this build with 50 con because I have so much movement. I never really get hit because, you know, I'm just constantly flying around with Rapier and net shot and claw shot. So I never really have to worry about getting hit too much. Of course I still get hit and stuff, but that's why I have 3 health potions and fire absorption on my consumables bar. So because BB scales mostly off of strength primarily, and the 200 strength passive is absolutely essential for max blunderbuss damage here. 10% damage on stunned, slowed, or rooted enemies, so this counts for net shot, this counts for riposte, and that's what makes 200 strength so high value. As for int, I just like to spec into a lot of int here so I can have some damage on the Rapier so it doesn't feel absolutely useless when I need to use it for DPS. But this is kind of where you can play around with the build a little bit. So something you can do here is if you don't like playing this little con, you can always drop down to 150 int and then move up to around 150 constitution. If you like this build more, this is usually the standard blunderbuss build. Or you could even drop strength entirely down to 50 strength for the damage on melee for Rapier, and you can spec completely into intelligence instead. Of course I can't really push it all the way down here because of the gear, but if you would like to play more into both weapons, you can play all the way up to 300 int, 50 strength and 150 con. So there's a lot of alternatives, and I highly recommend just messing around with it and seeing which one feels the best to you. But for now, this is the build I'll be running with 215 strength, 250 int, and 50 con. That's what you'll see me be playing in the clips as well, which is why I have such high burst, but I have really low HP. Sometimes I'll be playing 100 con as well if I'm feeling a little bit squishy and there's a lot of mages and bows on the other team. That's about it for the BB Rapier tree, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I appreciate it all. Peace out, see you in the next one. As for the